Hello, cosplay world. Hey guys, we're going to be making a load of straps for Sonic and a sword. In this first half of the video, we're going to be making a sword, and we're going to continue over at finalcosplaycore.com, and we're going to go over the straps and the little knobbly details and making all of those things. This is for Sonic of One Punch Man. The leotard, I believe, has got a scarf, are not included because you can just buy those. So just buy it. It's cheaper, fast, and it's a leotard. It's like $35. It's cool. It'll be fine. So we are going to be building a katana, a sheathed katana, and for our convention legal, at least in most conventions. Some conventions don't want wood. We're going to be cutting this out of MDF, medium density fireboard, and we are going to be cutting out from 3 layers. We have a top layer of 1/8 inch thick MDF, and a bottom layer of 1/8 MDF, and then a middle layer of 1/4 MDF. Now you see I'm cutting these like these little strips off this main piece of wood. Those strips are going to be kind of the meat in our sheath sandwich. They're going to go in between the top and bottom layer, and they're going to space out the sheath enough for the blade to go in. Yeah, and it will be exactly the same diameter, or sorry, profile of the blade, because it's cut from the same chunk of wood. As you can see, it's kind of a pain in the butt to do this with a saw. I might be see, I could do this with a long saw, but that might take a little work. If you have a circular saw, this would make this process much quicker, but I'm doing this on camera for everybody, and I didn't have a circular saw at the time. No, I did not have a circular saw at the time. That would make this process so much quicker. But this dovetail saw will work, hand tools will work, it just requires a tiny bit more elbow grease. So now we have the pieces. Off camera, I have glued them into that sandwich I mentioned earlier, and then I took my belt sander and I wrapped it on the belt sander, and it took like 2 or 3 minutes to sand it down. I'm going to go over the piece with a bit of sanding with the sanding sponge to fine tune it and make sure it looks nice and even and round. However, we can't sand out all of the imperfections because that would create a dent or warp in the piece overall. So we're going to use wood filler to fill in anywhere where there's gaps or holes, or wherever the glue didn't quite sit cleanly inside the sheath. See that? Yeah, there's like a little hole down towards the tip that I'm going to cover up where the pieces didn't quite glue together as nicely as possible. So once it's on, one trick I like to do is to actually wet my finger and smooth out the surface. It saves me a little bit of time sanding later, and it makes the the wood filler, right, go in a little deeper, and it's more even and smooth, and it's a little higher quality. Also, you don't kind of waste that much having extra material on hand, and that's good when you're using a ton of it like I do. The other option is plastic filler, which is kind of like next to the wood filler when you go and buy it. It's a little bit more bouncy, but because we're actually working with MDF, I prefer wood filler in this case. Wood filler can crack out if you have too much of a gap, in which case you probably want to take a little chunk of wood, coat it in a bit of glue, and then wedge it in there. If you got large holes, say like I'm gonna say like a 1/4 inch cube or more, at that point those are big enough for something to strike it and tap out or damage the wood filler. Wood filler is not particularly strong on its own, so you really shouldn't rely on it entirely. The sword itself just sort of has a hilt, and the grip looks straight up like a bicycle bike handle grip. So I bought a bike handle grip and I stuck it on the end. It's the super easiest thing ever. The guard is made out of MDF, and I'm probably gonna show it in like 2 seconds as I go over me using a wood filler to go over details. Yeah, so the guard there is just a rectangle that I cut a slit in to slide the sword through. And again, I'm just spending a lot of time sanding and smoothing and make it look nice and even, and filling in any place that didn't quite have the right angle. I like the tip. The tip on this has a nice little beveled semicircular angle impressed into it. That's very nice. The handle is black, just to be sure that none of the bike, if the bike handle goes anywhere, it doesn't expose any wood underneath, so we'll have paint underneath the whole thing. And we're securing the guard in place with a good bit of that plastic, friendly plastic. When friendly plastic hardens, it is very resilient. It's exceptionally good for like impromptu hardware or binding things together such as this. I used to use it a lot for mounting screws where screws would normally not be able to mount into, such as into foam or into lighter materials like well, EVA foam's still foam maybe, but things like that. So if you need a good hardware to hold things together or to stabilize, like a little knob on the end, or like just a little detail, then your friendly plastic is great for those small little details. And Cat, what are you doing? He's just rolling and trying to get my attention for this. You can see him up in the corner being a bad cat, and I'm ignoring him. So there we go. I heat it up just a little bit to get it liquid again, and then we're going to press it up against the guard, and that will secure it into place. That will be it. I think we just put a little cap of friendly plastic at the end of at the butt of the sword so that it has a nice rounded end, but that's pretty much all there is to that. It's a pretty simple sword. We're going to paint the whole piece black. The sheets is black, and we're going to varnish it with regular gloss varnish, and that's all it's going to take for the finishing. The guard as well is going to be black, and it's acrylic. It's just regular plain acrylic black, and it's all you really need for this project because it's a simple sword. There we go. And we are going to actually start adding the aluminum foil. So we have the aluminum tape, and it comes in 2 inches and 3-inch wide sections. Oh yeah, now we're adding the paint, finally. It's a real simple job because black paints on real easy. But yeah, aluminum tape comes in 2 and 3-inch types. I tend to use the 3-inch because it has more space for me to wiggle. You want to line up the aluminum tape as parallel as possible, because as you work, if it becomes misaligned, it will just come off the blade and it will expose like the edges, and we don't want any of those edges exposed with reflective material, because those edges are super visible with reflective material. And as you can see, I'm being very careful and very slow with it. I'm leaving the backing on until I need it the very last second. If you try and peel away the backing and just work with the tape itself, you end up with a lot of wrinkles, and it could stick to itself, and it could bend, and it's a pain in the butt. So definitely do not take it off the wrapping until you need it. We have some extra slag. What I'm gonna do is I clean that off with a X-Acto knife, or in my case I got a hot knife. No, there's X-Acto knives right there in the frame, and we're gonna use that to very cleanly and precisely finish the edge. We don't want any burrs, and we don't want it to get snagged and peel up any of the aluminum tape on the surface. We're going to do this to both sides, and we're going to keep the seam right on the edge of the sword where it's the least noticeable. And the sheath will work to protect this nice shiny finish. We're going to take it down a bit with a bit of sanding, with a sanding sponge, but it is quite a realistic weapon. It looks very much like metal. And I hope you guys enjoyed. The next thing we're going to do is all of the strap work for Sonic. Check that out, finalcosmic.com. Bye! Hey, I just wanted to say thanks for all the support and everything you help us with. Good times to all.